September 19, 2020, JPMorgan Chase, the largest bank in America, quietly wired $920 million to the U.S. Department of Justice. The headline read "Spoofing Settlement, the Crime." 8 years of systematic market manipulation in precious metals, thousands of fake orders. Artificial price suppression, a coordinated scheme to rig the silver market while the world looked away. The media covered it for 48 hours, then moved on. But here's what they didn't tell you. JPMorgan didn't pay that fine because they lost. They paid it because they won. While they were publicly punished for pushing silver prices down, they were privately accumulating the largest physical silver position in modern history. And now, in late 2025, as silver breaks through psychological barriers and industrial demand hits levels never seen before, that position is about to pay off in ways that will reshape the entire precious metals market. This isn't a story about crime and punishment. This is a story about the greatest trade of the decade, hidden in plain sight. The number you need to understand is $920 million. Not because it's a large fine, though it is, but because of what JPMorgan was doing while they were manipulating the market downward between 2011 and 2020. While JPMorgan traders were placing thousands of fake sell orders to suppress silver prices, another division of the same bank was doing something very different. They were buying, not paper. Silver, not futures contracts, not derivatives. Physical silver, bars, coins, deliverable metal. They were acquiring it by the tens of millions of ounces while their own trading desk kept the price artificially low. Think about the mechanics of this for a moment. If you are JPMorgan and you want to accumulate a massive position in silver, what's the best way to do it? You can't just walk into the market and start buying hundreds of millions of ounces. That would drive the price through the roof before you finish building your position. But what if you could control the price while you buy? What if you could create the illusion of weakness, trigger stop losses, shake out retail investors, and accumulate their metal at depressed prices? That's not a conspiracy theory. That's exactly what the Department of Justice said they did. The settlement documents describe a pattern of spoofing that lasted from 2008 to 2016. Traders would place large sell orders they had no intention of executing, creating the appearance of selling pressure, driving the price down, then canceling those orders and buying the metal cheaper. It was systematic. It was calculated. And it worked perfectly. Now here's where you come in. If you're watching this video because you want to understand what is really happening in the silver market, because you want to see the pattern before the mainstream catches on, then subscribe to this channel right now and hit the bell icon so you don't miss what's coming next. And do me a favor, comment below and tell me where you're watching from and what time it is in your part of the world. I want to see how global this silver story has become. Because what's happening right now isn't just an American story. It's not just a Chinese story. This is a worldwide shift in the precious metals market, and the players who see it early are the ones who will benefit. Alright, let's continue. By 2020, when JPMorgan paid that $920 million fine, something interesting started happening in the physical silver market. The bank had quietly become the custodian for the shares Silver Trust, known by its ticker SLV. This is the largest silver ETF in the world, holding hundreds of millions of ounces. And who holds that silver? JPMorgan. They are the vault keeper. They see every inflow. They see every outflow. They know exactly how much physical metal is moving in and out of the market. But here's the critical piece that most people miss. Being the custodian doesn't just give you information. It gives you positioning power. When retail investors buy shares of SLV, they think they own silver. But what they actually own is a claim on silver held by JPMorgan. They are unsecured creditors. If there's ever a liquidity crisis, if there's ever a default event, the people holding paper claims are the last in line. The people holding the physical metal, the custodians, they're first. And JPMorgan is the custodian. Let's connect this to history for a moment, because this pattern isn't new. In 1980, the Hunt brothers tried to corner the silver market. They accumulated massive positions, drove the price from $6 to $50 in a matter of months, and then the exchanges changed the rules. They implemented Silver Rule 7, which banned no long positions and only allowed liquidation. The hunts were forced to sell. The price collapsed, and they lost everything. The lesson wasn't that you can't corner silver. The lesson was that if you try to do it visibly, the system will change the rules to stop you. But what if you don't do it visibly? What if you do it slowly, quietly, while simultaneously paying fines that make it look like you're the bad actor being punished? What if you let the media write stories about how you got caught, how you paid the price, while the whole time you're building the position of a lifetime? That's exactly what JPMorgan appears to have done. Fast forward to 2024 and 2025. The silver market is experiencing something it has never experienced before: a structural deficit. The Silver Institute reported that 2024 saw a deficit of 215.3 million ounces. That was the fourth consecutive year where demand exceeded supply. But here's what makes 2025 different from every other silver shortage in history. Previous shortages were driven by investment demand. In 1980, it was the hunts. In 2011, it was retail investors buying coins after the financial crisis. Investment demand is elastic. When the price gets too high, investors sell. They take profits. The market rebalances. But 2025 is different. The demand now is industrial, and it's mandated. Solar panels are the biggest driver. The new generation of solar cells, called TOPCon technology, uses significantly more silver per panel than older designs. And it's not optional. If you want the efficiency, if you want to meet the renewable energy targets that governments around the world have mandated, you need the silver. You can't substitute it. You can't wait for the price to come down. You need it now, and you need it in quantities that the mining industry cannot supply. China is the world's largest producer of solar panels, and they are consuming silver at a rate that is draining global inventories. In late 2024, silver inventories on the Shanghai Gold Exchange hit 10-year lows. Not because traders were selling, because factories were consuming the metal faster than it could be replenished. When silver in Shanghai costs more than silver in New York, arbitrage kicks in. Traders buy every available ounce in New York, put it on a plane, and sell it in Shanghai. This is the great divergence that analysts have been tracking. The physical silver market is being drained from west to east. London vaults, which historically held massive stockpiles, have seen inventories plummet as metal moved to satisfy Asian demand. The COMEX in New York, which is the main exchange for silver trading in the United States, is now the last major liquidity pool left. And JPMorgan, as the custodian of the SLV and a major player in the COMEX system, sees all of it. Here's the data point that should terrify anyone holding paper silver. The COMEX reports two types of inventory: total inventory and registered inventory. Total inventory includes something called eligible silver. This is metal that meets the purity standards and is stored in COMEX vaults, but it's privately owned. It belongs to family offices, tech companies, strategic investors. They are using the COMEX as a storage facility. That silver is not for sale. The number that actually matters is registered inventory. This is the silver that is available to settle futures contracts. This is the liquid metal that the market can access. In 2020, registered silver at the COMEX stood at around 150 million ounces. By late 2024, it had collapsed. We're watching the ratio of paper claims to physical ounces explode. There are now hundreds of claims on every ounce of registered silver, and when someone stands for delivery, when they demand the actual metal instead of a cash settlement, the exchange has to deliver from that shrinking pool of registered inventory. Now think about JPMorgan's position. They paid $920 million for manipulating the market. They are the custodian of the largest silver ETF. They see the inventories draining. They see the industrial demand accelerating. They see China buying everything that isn't nailed down. If you were in their position, what would you do? You would accumulate physical silver while you still can, and you would position yourself to benefit from the inevitable supply shock. The evidence suggests that's exactly what they've done. Reports from silver analysts and industry insiders indicate that JPMorgan accumulated somewhere between 600 million and 1 billion ounces of physical silver during the 2010s. The exact number is hard to verify because they don't have to disclose private holdings, but the circumstantial evidence is overwhelming. They had the motive. They suppressed prices for years, giving them the perfect buying opportunity. They had the means. As a custodian and a major market player, they had access to metal that retail investors could never touch, and they had the knowledge. They saw the industrial demand curve before anyone else. Let's talk about what happens next, because this is where it gets really interesting. The narrative you hear in the mainstream financial media is that high prices cure high prices. If silver gets too expensive, mines will produce more, demand will fall, the market will balance. That narrative is wrong, and here's why. You cannot spin up a silver mine in 6 months. It takes 10 years to bring a new mine online, from exploration to permitting to construction to production. The timeline is measured in decades, not quarters. The mining industry has been underinvesting in new silver projects for years because prices were suppressed for so long that it was economical. Now that prices are finally rising, there's a massive lag before new supply can come online. Recycling is another dead end. You can recycle silver from old electronics, from old jewelry, from old industrial applications, but you can't recycle solar panels effectively yet. The technology exists in theory, but it's not economically viable at scale. Most of the silver going into solar panels today is effectively leaving the market for 25 years, which is the lifespan of the panel. That silver is gone. So if supply is capped and demand is exponential, what gives? The paper market breaks. The COMEX, which has been the price discovery mechanism for silver for decades, is sitting on a time bomb. They have sold far more silver on paper than exists in their registered vaults. When a major entity, whether it's a sovereign wealth fund, a tech company, or a strategic investor, stands for delivery and demands physical metal, the exchange has two choices: deliver the metal, which drains the registered inventory even further and accelerates the crisis, or declare force majeure, which is a fancy way of saying we can't deliver what we promised. Here's a cash settlement instead. The moment the market realizes that COMEX cannot deliver physical silver, the paper price and the physical price will decouple. You'll see a spot price on your screen that says $60. But try to buy a physical coin and it will cost you $100 or more. That's not speculation. We're already seeing early signs of it. Premiums on physical silver coins and bars have been elevated for months. Delivery times have stretched from days to weeks. Large buyers are struggling to source metal in size without moving the market. JPMorgan is sitting in the middle of this powder keg. They are the custodian. They hold the keys to the largest silver stockpile in the world through this LV. But they also hold their own private position. If they believed silver was abundant, if they thought the supply shortage was overblown, they would be shorting it into the ground. Instead, the price just hit multi-decade highs, and the banks are silent. No massive short campaigns. No coordinated takedowns. Just silence. Why? Because they're trapped. If they smash the price down with paper contracts, the arbitrage window widens. China and India will buy even faster, draining the vaults instantly. If they let the price run, their remaining short positions, and those of other banks, blow up. They're stuck between the physical rock of Asian demand and the paper hard place of Western derivatives. Here's the scenario that keeps central bankers awake at night. Imagine a world where silver breaks $100. Not because of speculation, not because of a Reddit forum, but because factories in China and South Korea and Germany literally cannot get the metal they need to keep production lines running. Solar panel manufacturers start bidding against each other. Electric vehicle companies, which need silver for every car they build, start competing for supply. They have server farms that are being built across the United States, each one requiring silver for components and connections. Enter the market as buyers. Suddenly you have industrial giants with balance sheets in the hundreds of billions. competing for a metal where global annual production is only about 1 billion ounces, and half of that is already spoken for by existing industrial contracts. What happens to the price? It doesn't just go up, it dislocates, and the people holding paper promises find out that their ETF shares, their futures contracts, their allocated accounts were never really backed by metal at all. This brings us back to JPMorgan's $920 million secret. The secret isn't that they manipulated the market. Everyone knows that now. The Justice Department confirmed it. The secret is that the fine was the cost of doing business. It was the price they paid to accumulate the greatest precious metals position in modern history without anyone noticing. Think about it from their perspective. You pay $920 million in 2020. It's a headline for a week. Then everyone forgets. But the silver you accumulated during those years of manipulation, that's now worth multiples of what you paid for it, and it's about to be worth multiples more. If you bought 600 million ounces at an average price of $15, which was roughly the suppressed price during much of the 2010s, you spent $9 billion. Silver is now over $30. That position is worth $18 billion. You've already doubled your money. But if silver goes to $60, $80, $100, which is entirely plausible given the supply-demand fundamentals, you're looking at a position worth $60 billion to $100 billion. The $920 million fine was the best investment JPMorgan ever made. Now let's talk about what this means for you. If you're watching this video, you're already ahead of 99% of investors who have no idea this is happening. But knowing about it and positioning for it are two different things. The window is closing. Price has broken through $30, which was a psychological barrier for years. But the real barrier, the physical availability of metal, is the next wall we're going to hit. When that happens, it won't matter what the spot price says on your screen. If you can't get the metal, the paper price is meaningless. So what do? First, understand that ETFs like SLV are not the same as owning silver. You are an unsecured creditor of a bank. In a crisis, you're last in line. If you want exposure to silver, you need physical metal in your possession or an allocated storage where you have direct legal title to specific bars. Second, don't wait for the perfect price. The people who wait for silver to drop back to $25 before they buy are the same people who waited for gold to drop back to $1,200 in 2019 and missed the entire run to $2,000 plus. The fundamentals have changed. This isn't a trade. This is a structural shift. Third, understand that this is a long game. The supply shortage isn't going to resolve in 6 months. This is a multi-year story. The industrial demand is locked in. The energy transition is locked in. The deficit is locked in. What is not locked in is whether you position yourself now or wait until everyone else figures it out. The final piece of this story is what happens when the music stops. At some point, probably within the next 12 to 24 months, a major institution is going to stand for delivery on the COMEX and demand physical silver in size. Maybe it's a sovereign wealth fund. Maybe it's a tech giant that needs to secure supply for the next decade. Maybe it's a country that decides silver is a strategic resource. When that entity stands for delivery and the exchange cannot fulfill it, everything changes. The COMEX will either deliver the metal and admit their inventories are nearly gone, or they will offer a cash settlement and admit they were running a fractional reserve system all along. Either way, confidence in the paper market will collapse. Premiums on physical silver will explode. And the people who own the metal, the people who accumulated it quietly while everyone else was trading paper, will be sitting on the most valuable commodity position of the decade. JPMorgan knows this. The industrial buyers know this. Now you know it. The $920 million that JPMorgan paid in fines was never a punishment. It was an entry fee. It was the cost of playing the greatest trade in the commodities market while everyone else was distracted by headlines about misconduct and manipulation. They weren't stopped. They were positioning. And now, as the silver market enters a supply crisis that cannot be solved by mining, cannot be solved by recycling, and cannot be solved by price alone. That positioning is about to pay off in ways that will shock the financial world. The question is, are you positioned, or are you still watching from the sidelines, waiting for confirmation that it's too late to act? The data is there, the inventories are draining, the industrial demand is accelerating, the registered silver is evaporating. The only thing left is the choice, paper or metal, promises or possession. The banks made their choice years ago. Now it's your turn.